Hello and welcome back to sunny Caldwell, Ohio here at Apex.
It's cloudy out, actually.
It's very cloudy.
Yeah.
But they don't know that.
Oh, sorry. Well, now they do.
We are here at the Apex Gaming Home Store for Apex Con, and today is a $5,000 modern Apex Invitational Qualifier. Corey, it is round 6 of 7.
Yep.
This is what we like to call the business end of the tournament.
Straight business rounds. Yeah, you pretty much have the two players that shake hands this round. They go get to check out the rest that the store has to offer. And then you got a lot of players that are playing to win and then shake hands, which is exactly what we're about to see 3 times over in this feature match area.
We can already congratulate Brendan Lane and Matt Sims on Esper Gorio's and Eldrazi ramp, respectively. Those are our two 5-0 players. They have already got that handshake and draw in. They are locked for the top 8, but 6 more spots still to be determined. And we are going to start with a matchup between two 4-1s between Chris Hafner on Boros Energy and Konstantin Kantartsits on Dimir Murktide.
Yes.
No spice from either of these players. This is straight up Dimir Murktide against Boros Energy. No Final Fantasy cards, nothing flashy. They're just playing good decks and playing them well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just some good old-fashioned magic here, and as this matchup played out in the past, it's a rough one for Dimir. So we'll see. We'll see if Konstantin can, have an upset here, as this is one of the reasons why the old Murktide frog decks haven't been as popular without being in like a Ketchermost shell, that type of thing.
Yeah. Uphill battle for Konstantin, but let's see how it plays out. We've got to play the cards. Our players are ready in the feature match area, so we'll head on down there and kick off round 6 of 7 here at the 5K Apex Invitational Qualifier.
Yeah, and I would say this isn't one of those, Modern doesn't get so skewed that we see a lot of like 75-25s. There are a few like that, but this is just one of the maybe, 60-40s.
Yeah, those matchups usually involve combo decks.
Yeah.
Neither of these decks are comboing at all. This is fair magic. We're going to play some creatures, some removal spells. We're going to draw some cards and see who has the best threat left when all the dust settles.
Yep, absolutely. And I've seen Chris around before, on other circuits, that kind of thing. Definitely a player that, has some game.
Okay, Konstantin kicks it off with a Surveil land, putting Subtlety in the graveyard. Hafner starts the game with an Ocelot Pride. Konstantin does have the Psychic Frog on turn 2, very important for this deck. Does Hafner have an answer? A Static Prison would be great.
And you can just tell Konstantin has been playing these Dimir cards in a while. Whenever someone's deck looks like this to start, they're like, this is my deck. I'm going to be playing this for a while, and I'm going to be a master at it.
Okay, here's a Galvanic Discharge. Does Konstantin want to discard a couple cards? Looks like he does.
Okay. So, yes, you have to discard 2 cards right now as just a straight way to, air quotes, counter this. But this feels like Chris knew this could happen and maybe has something available, because here's the thing: if Chris goes to Galvanic Discharge number 2, all of a sudden, you got a lot of value here from the discards here. You get a solid 2 for 3, and that's a good exchange from Chris, I think.
Oh, well, there are still 3 cards in hand for Konstantin, so another discharge, he might just empty his hand and say, you know what, I've got a giant frog, let's see what it can draw me.
All right.
No, so the Galvanic Discharge was bait here from Chris Hafner, and because Konstantin has to preempt the Galvanic Discharge, he gets to keep the 3 energy around from it.
Ironically, though, the fact that Galvanic Discharge in that situation was a double Thoughtseize, and Konstantin discarded 2 Thoughtseize. Nice.
Highly ironic. So Ocelot Pride will rumble in. That'll drop Konstantin to 16, Hafner back up to 15, and then make a token on the end step. And now Konstantin deploys a second Psychic Frog. Does Hafner have a 3rd removal spell?
Or, technically, if Konstantin wanted to get official there, that card was drawn and then you paid it. I know we're not playing that serious, but Konstantin almost could have had a second frog immediately right there.
Static Prison triggers on the beginning of the...
Oh, it is. Okay. I will shut up.
Chris Hafner playing very tight, unlike my co-commentator.
Exactly. Okay, I was testing you, and you passed.
Guide of Souls from Hafner and a Johnny.
Okay.
So this will be 2 more energy coming and a couple of life. Back up to 16 is Chris Hafner. Now he has 6 total energy. He can immediately pay for a Guide of Souls, but this Psychic Frog can also jump into the air.
What a draw from Chris, though. Like, yes, I think this cat, might get eaten, but that's the thing. Then a Johnny flips. I still think you're probably right. You probably do want to discard a couple cards here.
You'd have to discard 2 cards to get the frog to a 3/4. Exile 3 from your graveyard, leave 2 more. Because at next turn, you still want 3 cards in graveyard to jump the frog again to attack the Ajani.
Yeah, and there's no red permanent here to really punish you, where Ajani's going to be, dealing with the frog post-combat. But hey, this is a true cost here for sure.
So Murktide Regent and Counterspell get discarded for Constantine. Now the frog has 2 counters on it. He'll exile the 3 non-Thoughtseize cards from the graveyard, put it into the sky. Now it can jump in front of the Ocelot Pride. 3 life still gained in the exchange for Hafner. He'll go up to 19. And now the Ajani triggers, and Hafner does choose to transform. That is a May, so that is a choice that he made. Looks like he's going to put some counters on his cats and make it more difficult for this frog to attack the Ajani.
Reasonable. Yeah, I think I would have liked to see Chris not attack with that Ocelot Pride. Maybe you could attack with the Guide of Souls, as that would be 1 more card Constantine would have had to discard. But then Ocelot Pride, if my math is correct, would have made a cat and then made another cat and then made a 2/1 cat, because we would have ascended as well. So that was a real cost.
Okay. Another Thoughtseize discarded for Constantine to the Psychic Frog. So now it is a 4/5. If he wants to discard the last of his cards in hand, he can get the frog big enough to attack the Ajani.
You've gone this far, and you do get to draw a card when you attack a Planeswalker. It's not just players, so you get a little bit back, but...
Yeah, just has to commit. This is the line that he's chosen the entire game.
Yes.
Commit to these frogs. So it's frog against the world for Constantine Kantartsis.
And I want to say, yeah, we have Flage, Land, and Voice of Victory in hand from Chris. So still some nice gas in the tank, but, I mean, this is a true problem. This frog is swole.
Hafner decides to go with the Flage for a turn. That'll get him up to 3 energy. Little awkward because he's not going to want to pay energy for this Guide of Souls and leave himself with 0 for the Static Prison next turn.
Yeah, so losing that Ocelot Pride was a big deal because there would be 3 more energy, as you would have gotten, 3 different kind of cats. And your Static Prison is just for sure safe. You can start throwing around, energy on +1/+1 counters basically at whim. But yeah, now you got to have a much more measured approach.
Okay, the land drawn was an Elegant Parlor, so that'll get Hafner closer to escaping the Flage.
Oh, we're there, yeah.
So Flage is ready to escape next turn from its graveyardy prison.
Chris's draw was just like what Boros energy players dream about. Whether you made that little, decision that may or may not have been correct, it almost just doesn't matter, as Chris's just curve out was just a work of art, and I loved that Galvanic play.
Yeah, just
that Galvanic
into a mind rot.
Yes.
And that was an attack for 6 on Hafner's turn, even without a Guide of Souls pay. So Constantine down to 8. Now he comes in with the frog for 5, dropping Hafner to 18. All this life gain that Hafner's had from his cards makes it really difficult for Constantine to win this race.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Game 1, you have 1 cling to be able to deal with the Flage. If not, Flage will get you eventually, and that's kind of why this matchup is brutal. 2 big factors. Tokens are tough to deal with a deck full of spot removal, as well as inevitability creatures like Flage, and Boros Energy is great at both of those avenues.
Okay, Constantine has an Orcish Bowmasters after Hafner just sends in the team. So this can do quite a bit. There's a 3/2 cat token, a 2/2 cat token, and a 1/2 Guide of Souls. A lot of options here. What do you like?
I like, for sure, pinging the Guide and then blocking with the Orc army, and then I guess you just have to chump. Yeah, so exactly what Constantine did. I think that's the only real choice.
So effectively trades the Orcish Bowmasters for Guide of Souls and prevents another 3 damage from the attack.
Yep.
2 will still come across.
Yeah, if you're going to make that play, you might as well do that pre-combat. Then you get that perfect information.
Yeah,
get the voice down first.
Voice of Victory and Goblin Bombardment. Could have done both of those pre-combat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you start with the voice, then Constantine makes the play, then it's just a free Goblin Bombardment. But once again, when you stop at 4 mana and you curve out perfectly, and then you also have Flage ready to go, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Constantine down to 6 at this point and just doesn't have much in the way of defense against this wide battlefield of Hafner. The voice of victory with the Goblin Bombardment is going to give him plenty of reach. Gets in with the Frog, sees what his top card is, and I can't imagine he finds something he likes.
Yeah, it's got to be like, I would think Bowmaster as well as Fatal Push, something like that. You would need kind of both, but yeah, tough game there. Really just a phenomenal play and a fantastic draw there from Chris.
Yeah, really, once that turn 2 discharge turned into a Mind Rot and got followed up by the Static Prison, from that point, there just wasn't much coming back for Constantine.
And it just kept getting worse from Constantine's perspective as well. Like, each turn was devastating.
Okay. Players are going to turn to sideboards, and so are we. Checking out Constantine's, I see a lot of cards I like in this sideboard, Corey.
Yeah, so I think the ones that stand out there, I love the 3 Stern Scolding. Phenomenal card when you're on the draw. It's basically super spell snare, like the fact that you can have a counter spell for any of those powerful 2-drops, but they can also hit, Seasoned Pyromancer, those kind of things. It ends up being awesome. Shoot the Sheriff you can bring in as another piece of removal spell. I think you need the Nile Spell Bombs for Flage. Those are the most important cards there. And then I'd bring in that Engineered Explosives for 0-drops or maybe tricky to deal with enchantments like Goblin Bombardment, as well as bring in the Hook. Time for the Massacre. Meat Hook Massacre looks great.
Horns, let's go. So a couple sweepers in the sideboard for Constantine, some good removal. The Stern Scoldings, which are a great piece of interaction, and Spellbomb to help against Flage. That's a great sideboard for this matchup.
Really good.
But also a signal that he knows his game 1 configuration is not good.
Yeah, needless to say, when we get to Chris's sideboard, you don't need to bring in as many cards, and that's very telling of the matchup.
Yeah, not as much that I like here.
Yeah, I think I like the Purges. That's still just a good, clean answer for Frog. That seems okay. I guess as I say that, is that the only real thing we're hitting? Maybe Bowmaster.
It's Kaido.
Yeah.
Could exile the Meat Hook Massacre if that's the problem.
Yeah, and it is closed deckless, so Chris won't know about that. I think I like Purges on the draw and not on the play, just to try to break serve from the Frog. But I honestly could see Chris just not even looking at his sideboard and just resubmitting. Every card in the main looked totally fine.
How do you feel about this Showdown of the Scalds? That's kind of speaking to me. This is a grindy matchup.
It is. It just comes down to how many counter spells you think Dimir is going to leave in, and the answer is usually not that many. Counterspell, Factual Counterspell, is a card that you can trim. The one thing I would be worried about is if I ever run into a Force of Negation with that, it feels real bad.
It definitely does, but resolving it feels really good.
Oh, man. That is a nice one. I love that one.
Okay, as our players continue to shuffle up, I'll take some time to shout out our sponsors, starting with Once Upon a Galaxy, new auto battler. Assemble a crew as you sail across a diverse and spectacular galaxy of your favorite storybook characters, legends of myth, and other cosmic entities. Check it out in your app store today. We are also sponsored by SpiceRack. Moxfield. Let's do Moxfield first.
You do whatever you want, buddy.
Moxfield is an excellent place to host and build your decks and deck lists. It's what we use, and it helps us run our tournaments smoothly. Okay, looks like players are ready to begin here, so let's head down to the match.
Yeah, if you want to see some of the worst deck lists you've ever seen, go to my Moxfield profile and check it out. I got loads of do's and mostly don'ts in there.
That's the thing with decks. Most of them are don'ts.
Yeah.
You don't get to the do's without sifting through a lot of don'ts.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, with Breach being gone, I've been sifting. A lot of drawing 3, discarding 1. And that comes with my deck list as well. 3 okay ones. Gotta at least get one of these out of there.
Playing a lot of coiling catches with the Meringue River region. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm a fan. That is 2025 Sift. That's for sure.
Okay, Hafner starts this game with a mulligan to 6, so things looking a little bit better for Constantine in game 2.
Yeah, definitely better from Chris's perfectly sculpted top 16 cards. All right, let's see if we're going to enter the frog subgame of how many cards are we going to discard to protect this. That was hilarious to watch.
No matter what, you want to start with a turn 2 frog.
Oh, yeah.
No one drop from Hafner's, so it makes it even easier to jam the frog.
Definitely.
So you know what? I'm on the play. I'm the aggro deck now.
There is nothing that feels better than playing frog on turn 2 to an empty board.
Flooded Strand finds an island for Constantine.
Not sacking the other one. We're either playing this nice and slow or it's Tameo time. Oh, I thought that was a Delta as well, but that must just be a watery grave, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, makes more
There
sense.
is the frog. Hafner sacking his Flooded Strand. Likely getting an Elegant Parlor. And he does.
Calling out his Dragon Island there. I do kind of like those.
Same.
Yeah. I feel like we're most of the time, you know, always against some of the newer land designs, but hey, that's not bad.
Yeah, that one got me.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, well,
Flayed.
Chris continues to have the absolute nuts at every stage of these first 2 games.
Yeah, hitting Flage for free off of Elegant Parlor is just something else, especially in a matchup where the front half is usually not a great play.
Yeah, like you want to discard that. But when it just starts in your graveyard for free, it's basically having Gigantha back. You get a companion.
Okay, Justin and Johnny for Chris Hafner, and Constantine has a subtlety at the ready, which means this frog will be able to attack unimpeded. Hafner decides to put the Ajani on top.
Overall, though, not a good exchange, you know? So those kind of exchanges over and over, they look great on this first turn, but eventually they catch up to Constantine as you do, it's not card advantage to not even deal with the card.
But Psychic Frog makes it a lot more powerful.
I mean, it definitely helps, but definitely helps.
Maybe you play another Psychic Frog, you know?
It also just isn't that hard to jump the frog is kind of what I'm saying, though. Like, sure, even if the Johnny's there, you can probably Fatal Push a token, or Fatal Push a Johnny, jump the frog, and you're still feeling pretty good.
Preordain from Constantine after attacking with his frog, splits the scry. 1 top, 1 bottom. Now here is a Watery Grave. Untapped, shocking down to 17, and passes the turn. So this could easily be a whole host of different counter spells.
Yeah, I think also Orcish Bowmaster, I think that was drawn here, but I could be wrong.
Corey, your name is pronounced Bowmaster.
Yes, that's true. I honestly do stumble over it because I'm so used to saying Orcish Baumeister on my stream, but I've truly ruined myself, and oh my, that was a turn.
Johnny eats a Stern Scolding, and then Constantine uses the leftover mana to cling to dust the Flage that's in the graveyard. So down a card for it, but answers the threat of the Flage, and now continues to attack and draw cards with the Psychic Frog.
Yep, that was huge. That was absolutely huge. Now Constantine's turn to really have this over-the-top fantastic draw here.
Frog comes in, Constantine draws a card, still 4 cards in hand. Everything looking much better this game for him. Now a Murktide Regent.
Okay, you do got to get rid of Cling, it looks like, for that, which is a little bit of a bummer.
This isn't really a matchup where you get to the games long enough for that. He's trying to end this game quickly. He's got the Frog going. He's got Murktide Regent now. That's a 6/6 flyer. He can end this game in 2 attacks.
You tell that to the escaped Arena of Glory Flage in 2.5 turns here.
Now, what does Hafner have? Clearly doesn't have a Static Prisoner, or I think it would have gone after a Psychic Frog earlier.
Yep.
Does have Galvanic Discharge. This bait.
Here we go again. Yeah, I mean, it feels like bait, right? Because here's the thing. I was joking with you about the Flage, but I do think the follow-up is land 4 Flage, and then any fetch land, and your Arena of Glorying back a Flage, which for sure races a Murktide. I could be wrong. I might have missaw it, but...
The land Fatal Push the discards for Constantine, keeps the Psychic Frog around.
All right, looks like that's not the case.
Hafner has a Rogavan. Which shouldn't be too big of a problem. Yeah, Constantine lets that happen, and we go back his way.
So now the one piece of interaction with Psychic Frog and Murktide that works out quite well that Constantine has available is if you can discard a spell, then when you go to jump the frog, multiple spells leave your graveyard and Murktide gets a boost. So you can see these two cards have some really nice synergies together.
Which means Constantine might want to leave the frog back as a blocker. He's still at 20.
Yeah.
Discarding a card to it. That's a Sink into Stupor. Now going to exile, looks like 2 spells exiled among the 3 cards of the frog. So 2 more counters on the Murktide Regent. And this is an attack for 12. All in the air, so Ragavan can't jump. Hafner going to fall to 4 life, and Constantine will draw another card from the frog.
And Chris's hand is Bombardment, Blood Moon, and a mystery card, so let's just head to game 3.
Another frog drawn off the top, so Constantine deploys that, and yeah, Hafner picks him up, and we are headed to a 3rd and final game in this match.
You know, I just love when you have just 2 really close games, you know? Just 2 really close games so we can really sink our teeth in a solid 3rd one.
The difference was, did Hafner have the answer to the turn 2 frog? In one game he did,
Yep.
The other one he didn't. They played out completely differently as a result.
100%, yep. And just both, honestly, from both sides, both games, both players had good draws, but the person on the play just really got to capitalize both times.
I frankly, why are we still calling this deck Dimir Murktide? Just call it Dimir Frog.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there is one card that is impactful these days, and there's one that like you put in because you can't give up your Murktides. You know, I wouldn't be shocked if this deck just becomes a 0 Murktide deck. You know, like.
I mean, sometimes you don't see very many. Sometimes you see a Abhorrent Oculus.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't seem like the catch-all be-all as far as threats goes. Today, you know.
But it does combo with Psychic Frog, so...
That's a good point. That's a good point. If it didn't have synergies with the frog, you know, I think its days would be numbered.
It's all glory to the Hypnotoad.
Exactly.
Players still shuffling up, so I'll take some time to shout out our other sponsors for the weekend. I've touched on Moxfield, so let's head to spicerack.gg. This is our partner running the tournament software that keeps everything going smoothly. This is where our deck lists get posted. It's a great place as a player for you to find tournaments, and if you're a tournament organizer, help you run your tournament smoothly as well. So shout out to spicerack.gg. And then finally, Ultimate Guard, the industry leader in gaming supplies, from the Katana sleeves to the Boulder deck box. Go to your local game store and try to find some Ultimate Guard products today. Okay, players drawing their hands here for game 3, and unlike the first 2 games, Chris Hafner gets to be on the play.
Yeah, big game here, big game.
Yeah, much easier to overwhelm a Psychic Frog even if you don't have removal when you're on the play.
Exactly, yeah. You can just kind of race it. Because most of the time when you play a frog, you want to just be spending your next few turns clearing the way for your frog to get through. But when you're clearing the way, but they still are attacking you with those really tricky 1-drops and Johnnies and that kind of thing, it can still be pretty brutal.
Even better news for Chris Hafner, Constantine taking a mulligan. So now going to be on 6 cards on the draw. You know, makes it a little bit harder to protect those early Psychic Frogs from Atlantic discharges.
Absolutely, yeah. I would say mulliganing is much worse for the Dimir side than it is Boros in this matchup.
Yeah, but you hate mulliganing with any deck.
I mean, I just don't do it then. You know, like, it just makes it so much easier. You start with 7 cards instead of 6. I just don't get it.
You definitely don't get it. That's true.
That's why I'm here with you.
Okay, Constantine going to look at his second hand, see if it's any better. Looks like it's a keep. I think he's thumbing a card to tuck. And there it is. Let's get down into this match.
All right, not the ideal start, but hey, you can never be too sad with the Guide of Souls.
Yeah, Plains Guide of Souls perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Constantine, this could be a tough turn. Ooh, a Soporific Springs.
Tapped Island. Your turn.
So won't have any sort of Stern Scolding, Spell Snare up. Hafner gets 2 turns to do whatever he wants. Just comes across with the guide, and now Mountain Ajani.
Yeah, and especially if you mulligan and then your answer to this was a subtlety. It's like, that feels so bad.
Yeah, no turn 1 play for Constantine on the draw against 2 early creatures from Hafner. It feels like he's going to need one of these sweepers to get back up.
Definitely. And that's the problem with playing Dimir instead of Grixis or just blue-red. Like, Pyroclasm right now looks amazing. But, there's really no sweeper that you can play here.
Preordain the play from Constantine. Wouldn't be surprised if he needs a second land. Usually an early Soporific Springs is a sign that land light.
I feel like you had to have drawn that preordained too, because I think you'd want to take 3 and cast that on turn 1 when you have such powerful cards like Bowmaster. But this could be land Fatal Push, and we'd still be cooking.
Yeah, splits the scry on the preordained, so found a card he liked. There's a Watery Graves, so Constantine down to 17 now after taking 1 from the guide last turn, and has a Tamio, which is at least a decent blocker.
Yeah, not ideal, though. And here comes old Flage to come say what's up to Tamio.
After shocks in a Sacred Foundry. I saw the Flage in hand, too. That's a pretty easy play. It'll deal with the Tamio, get him a 3rd energy. Now he can pay for the Guide of Souls, and everything cooking here for Hafner in Game 3.
And you get to jump something here.
So this is an attack for 6. Constantine going to fall to 11. And Hafner up all the way to 24.
And the one thing about Flage here was just natural drawn lands, no fetch lands. So most of the time you at least have like 3-4 cards in the yard by this point. So we are a ways away from Flage, but Constantine will have to deal with these creatures, and dealing with the creatures then fuels the fire.
Another preordained for Constantine.
That's what we wanted.
Ugh.
Got a spell snare there, why not? Keep it.
Bottoms both.
Oh, preordain off the top.
Oof.
Just what the doctor ordered.
That's all 3. There's only 3 in the list.
Oh, God.
That's not what you need in this very aggressive matchup. You really need to interact early and often. Constantine has not been able to do that.
On the bright side, we do have an Orcish Bowmaster here ready and waiting. So that's at least something, but it's not great. I think Constantine desperately needs a turn off from Chris. Just needs him to have a brick of a turn, and then maybe can do something here.
Yeah, so here's the Bowmaster from Constantine after the attack. He can do a 1 to the Ajani, then try to block Ajani and the cat token.
Yeah, hey, that's good. But if it goes wrong, it goes really wrong, as like you block here, you block Bowmaster to the cat, and then if you like, I don't know, kill the Orc army, then you get to still transform. But
yeah, you're already at 11.
I like, this is exactly what I would be doing for sure. You gotta go for it.
It's a calculated risk.
At this point, the amount of what your opponent can have shrinks in my mind if I'm playing. I'd be like, well, if you have this, I'm dead. If you have this, I'm dead. I need to play like you don't have much and block with the best possible blocks, and I think that means putting each 1/1 to kill the 2 cats that Ajani makes.
Constantine's still thinking about it, if it's a risk he wants to take.
Guess you could double block Ajani too. That also doesn't feel amazing. Yeah, I like it.
And it works. Okay, so Constantine falls to 8 from the Guide of Souls that is in the air. Successfully trades the Bowmasters for the Ajani.
Oh, no. You know Chris is like, please do block that. I need to play my Pyromancer.
Okay, so Hafner with the Seasoned Pyromancer post-combat discards Ragavan Plains. So going to draw 2 cards and make 1 elemental token. That gets him 2 life and 2 energy from the Guide of Souls. He's up to 26. Constantine's at 8. And he has a Flooded Strand and a pass.
And my favorite elemental token for sure.
You shut your mouth.
Ross, you forgot to hit the mute mic button on that.
No, I did not.
Yeah, this Flooded Strand with the Surveil land, you automatically... we would still have multiple Surveil lands available, so no matter what, you're bringing back Flage, and that is just attacking Constantine at too many angles this early in the game. You know, turn 5 to have to deal with the battlefield as well as have to deal with the graveyard for Flage without any sweepers like Damnation in your deck. This just is starting to look insurmountable.
Yeah, you could imagine something like Fatal Push your Guide of Souls, play a Murktide Regent, would let him catch back up, but then you still have the Flage to deal with.
Exactly.
It's just that third thing.
Now, all this being said, Cling the Flage, Fatal Push the Guide, Murktide, it has to be one of those kind of turns, you know? Like, you have to be absolutely popping off to really get it going.
Yeah. Constantine fetches for an island, so he'll drop to 7 life now.
Fully insulated, not fully, but, you know, semi-insulated from Blood Moon if Chris left those in. But that's the least of Constantine's problems right now.
Yeah, I gotta figure out this battlefield first. This looks like a Meat Hook Massacre.
It's definitely a card.
So that'll take out the Seasoned Pyromancer and its token, and will deal, will allow him to gain 2. So back up to 9.
Very important that it was the gain 2, not the your opponent lose 2. Constantine needs the reprieve, because here's the problem, is there is already 8 damage on the battlefield.
Yeah, so really he did need that 2 life just to live.
Just live. So right now, Constantine is at an effective 1, having to deal with Guide of Souls and Flage, while Guide of Souls is also going to have 5 power.
Yeah, Hafner fetches down to 25, gets Elegant Parlor.
With the Goblin Bombardment in hand.
Yeah. And is just escaping this Flage. So Constantine going to fall to 6 from the Flage trigger. Hafner up to 28. 29, because he also gains from Guide, up to 3 energy. Now can attack with Guide, put 2 counters on it, and that's 5. So Constantine down to 1. 2 lethal threats in play for Hafner, and they both need to be removed, because otherwise the bombardment is...
Yeah, or you have to have a spell snare or something for that, but yeah, just so many different ways of attack right now. And we're probably going to start with a Preordain.
Honestly, Constantine will struggle to answer the Flage at 1 life, because it's hard to turn on a Fatal Push with the Revolt without a fetch land.
That is really, really true.
Oh, if he has something like the Shoot the Sheriff from the sideboard.
Yep. Yeah, either way, it just seems like it is far too much. And honestly, I thought both players played quite well. You know, this game was kind of a non-game because, once again, Chris just had a great draw and Constantine just did not have a quick start. Too many blue cards to start. You know, it ends up being a big problem, but this really does just showcase and cement to me how brutal of a matchup it is trying to fight against this Boros energy deck from the Dimir side.
If he just had, you know, a Fatal Push early for that Guide of Souls, things could have played out very differently.
Yeah, you need the early interaction. So whether that means, hey, maybe you had to mulligan your hand. I believe Constantine did already take a mulligan, so it's harder to mulligan to 5 to make sure you have turn 1 interaction or something like that. So, you know, just a brutal spot from Constantine, and nice work there from Chris. Probably locked up a top 8.